What is up, everybody? If you like the content I put up, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, and leave me a comment below letting me know what you think of today's video. And I think his OP-ness, I don't really know, OP-ness. His overwhelming strength. How do I even say that? What is up, everybody? STARSKREAM here, and today we're going to be going over a top 10 heroes list. This is going to be an update to the first one that I put out, and it's also going to go in tandem with the live one that just came out. I know a bunch of you guys attended, and probably a lot of you guys have already watched the replay of the live top 10 video, but if you haven't, then at the end of this video, I'm going to be linking that video, so make sure that you guys go check that out. Now, I wanted to make this video so that I could give my own personal top 10 list and be able to give you a little bit of insight as to why I choose specific heroes and their specific placements, whereas in the live version, it was a lot of fun and it was pretty close to my top 10, and there's no like right top 10 list. It's all obviously opinion, but we didn't really get to get into why people were picking each hero. It was just kind of like everybody got to vote on it, and you know, it's community driven, and I let people kind of move around their votes. You know, if it was clear that there were two heroes that were like really close and tied, I let people that were in other heroes move their votes around. So it definitely shifted things, but more than anything, I wanted to give a little bit of insight, like I did in my first video, as to why each hero is kind of in the placement that it's in, and perhaps be able to give some reasoning behind why some of mine are a little bit different than what was on the live stream. But anyways, I don't want to make this super long. I want to just cut straight to the chase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin, just like with my last video, I'm just going to begin with number 10. So in at number 10, we have Grande. Grande still pretty much serves the same purpose he did in the first video, which I still recommend going and watching, because I go pretty in depth on each hero that I picked in that one. But more than anything, what he really does is he supports the team a lot, and he still serves that exact same purpose. And at that time, I had chosen Grande because he worked really well against, you know, all the Rayla teams that were out at the time. But right now, he still works really well. He works really well because of the Serenity and Dagon meta that's currently, you know, out right now, and it also helps with Archon. There's just a lot of AoE burst defender type heroes that Grande can still help against. That said, he did drop, I think, a little bit from the last video down to number 10, just because there's just it's getting pretty stacked at the top, which is actually a good thing in my opinion. It's good that, you know, there's a lot of viable heroes now, but that said, some of his stuff is pretty special. Like, he stops any retaliation, revenge hits, so that stops things like Aria, stops things like slow heroes being able to retaliate. When he dies, he heals his team, which is always awesome. Everybody gets shell power, which makes it so they can't be burned, frozen, chilled, paralyzed, or shocked, which is immensely useful. And at the start of the dungeon, he makes it so that whoever the lowest defense hero is on your team can't be targeted by the opponent. So it's like having an aversion rune on that hero without necessarily needing it. And typically your lowest defense hero is going to be your highest offense hero. Usually those are going to be your squishy attack hero. So it definitely helps with them not being able to be targeted. His abilities are somewhat lackluster. Daunting Gleam is pretty cool. It gives a reflective plate, which can sometimes help you out. Sometimes you don't really get to use it. Sometimes it doesn't like end up, you know, helping as much as you would think it would. But it is definitely a good ability. And also, everybody on your team gets a reflective plate, gets something called skilled response, which reflects 50% of any damage taken back at the opposing hero, which is very strong. So the enemies can do a lot of damage to themselves. So overall, a pretty good hero. He's really good to kind of just throw in there when they have a really high attack defense team. But aside from just giving your team some tankiness, he doesn't really serve a lot of other purpose, which is why he's a little bit lower. Still a solid hero though. Out of 100 and something heroes, he's number 10, so still pretty decent. So in at number 9 is going to be Aria for me. Aria, I think, has really just stayed tried and true. She did get recently not too long ago, she got some extra buffs with the assassin team, which made her even better. She does provide some of the same utility as somebody like Grande while providing a little bit of attack power as well. You'll notice here that allies take 25% reduced damage from melee attacks. Assassins take double that. Well, I guess double reduction at 50% less damage. Enemies deal 25% reduced damage if they're provoked, paralyzed, or off balance, which all enemies should be starting the dungeon off balance, assuming they don't have some type of foresight protection or something like that. So the cool thing is, like, they're immediately going to be starting doing less damage than they normally would, which is very, very effective. And she has the ability to counter twice to do double damage, so I always put a lot of enabler runes on her, so she's always doing epic attacks, and she can do 2 epic attacks, which is like really, really solid. And of course, assassins gain a little bit of buff, 15% attack and defense, which can be pretty solid, especially considering that some of the best heroes are assassins. And 40% chance to dodge, and will dodge any attacker that is paralyzed or off balance, which again, remember, all your enemies are starting out the match off balance anyways. So again, super, super strong, and all assassins have an increased crit and dodge chance. Aside from that, her abilities actually do quite a bit of damage. Sand in the Eyes is a very, very solid move, but even her basic attack is really, really strong. It does 4 times damage on a counter, and if you have the proc of hitting twice, it can just do a lot of damage. If you pair that with a shield piercing rune, you can really, really ruin a lot of other heroes' plans. Prime Twist is kind of useless. I would like to see this move changed up a little bit, but either way, it's not terrible. Hurricane Flurry is a pretty decent move, and her epic stats are pretty solid. Attack, you don't really need dodge chance, but attack and max health are really good in the current meta. So definitely still a good hero. How you ruin her is really up to you at this point. There are a lot of different builds out there, but that'll be for a separate video. Okay, so coming in at number 8 for me is going to be Miko the Marvelous. Here's the deal with Miko. A lot of people really, really like him, and a lot of people think he's not that great. I am kind of in the middle. I think he's an exceptionally good hero under certain circumstances. I think he has really, really good traits. He cannot be silenced, which is always an awesome trait to have. Obviously, he's fast, but his other traits are really solid. The problem is to get his maximum potential, you do have to have him on a team with Cruel King Bramble. Cruel King Bramble is alright. He's not like horrible, and he definitely makes Miko like really, really good. But being forced to use Cruel King Bramble kind of makes him not as good for me, because Cruel King Bramble just really isn't that good. It's not a scenario where, like Soulcard, where you have to use Malice, but Malice is actually a pretty strong hero in her own right. But we will go over the traits really quick. Jack in the Box is really good. It gives your other goblin, including Miko, the ability to apply Paralyzed or Dazed on any type of hit, so that's really strong. Went on a team with Cruel King Bramble. Buffs on this hero last twice as long, which obviously is very good. The first debuff on a goblin hero, including Miko, will be reflected back at whoever would have been applying that debuff, so that's a very solid thing to do. Bounce attack is his basic attack, so he will bounce 9 times among whatever heroes are available. So if there's only 2 heroes, it's just going to go back and forth between the 2 of them, which is very, very strong. If he loses more than 30% of his current health at once, he does become untargetable, which is great, but doesn't help all the time, especially if, because of right now there's a really big AoE meta where almost every attack is a area of effect attack, so it really doesn't help as much as you would think. And any enemy that attacks him twice in a row does get a freeze debuff applied, which is really, really good, but again, you don't really see it happen like that often. His abilities are solid. His basic attack is good. His chaotic bounce is not actually, I think I said that wrong. Yeah, his chaotic bounce is not is not his basic attack, obviously, but that's the attack that goes and hits quite a few times. Puppet Master is a really good move. Take a Break is not really used very much. It's okay. It's really not that great. Puppet Master's a little bit better of a move, and then Chaotic Bounce can do quite a bit of damage if if it hits. The problem is right now there's a lot of evasion runes, so a lot of times it's really easy to dodge this. What would be normally a very OP move is really easily mitigated right now because almost everybody's running evasion runes, and that's kind of the reason that I have him a little bit lower than some of the other heroes that are on this list. So next on our list at number 7 for me is going to be Sybil. In the live stream, it was kind of a debate between Sybil and Miko. I do believe that Sybil, in my opinion, is a better hero overall than Miko. Simply because Sybil, obviously doesn't need any other heroes to be able to use most of his traits and moves, but also just because his traits and moves, in my opinion, are just better. He is fast, obviously the same. He does have an innate dodge ability. Basically, this Venom-tipped arrows isn't that great, but blending in is phenomenal. He's immune to damage and silence, so just like Miko, he's immune to silence during the first round, can't be stolen, copied, or purged, but also is immune to damage, so additional to what Miko's ability is, he has that on top of it. Aside from that, he gains 25% damage reduction whenever a debuff is applied on this hero, so if he gets any type of debuff, he's already taking less damage. He takes reduced damage from fire heroes. He has any ranged ally can apply venom, which is okay but not like amazing. He gets increased crit chance, which again is okay but not amazing. When on a team with Alrakis Skullkeeper, who is used a lot right now, he does 15% damage as chaos damage, which again, remember, is unavoidable and is shield piercing, and it's just really chaos damage is insane right now. And he has further damage reduction based on stacks of venom. So again, he's just able to tank quite a bit of damage for the first couple rounds. Aside from that, Tongue Lash is an extremely good move, and it never misses. It cannot be dodged, cannot miss, and it purges all enemy buffs. So you got to think about the fact that he cannot miss, so he's for sure gonna be purging all of the enemy's buffs, and he's gonna apply a random buff to each one of your team for each buff that was removed from an enemy. So he's on your own team, he's gonna be applying a ton of random buffs, all of which are really, really good and pretty much guaranteed as long as his attack gets off, which is almost guaranteed that his first attack is going to get off. There are a few ways that it might not happen where he might not get the attack off, but I mean, realistically, that whole setup is pretty much guaranteed if you're running this correctly. Make It Rain is a pretty solid move. It's not like amazing, but it is an AoE move. It gives him evasion, and it makes it so that all enemies have a 90% chance to miss for one turn. So odds are, they're probably gonna miss. But anyways, it doesn't help a lot versus Dhaegon. Dhaegon is still, able to get past this part here. But Sybil is overall a really, really strong hero, and a few people that I've seen have him ruined like exceptionally well, just wreck people that aren't prepared to deal with like a super overpowered Sybil. In at number 6 for me is going to be Jin Lei. Tried and true, he still remains one of the best heroes in the game. If you really, really want an in-depth reason as to why he's super good, you might want to go watch my other top 10 video. But basically, his epic is insanely good. It gives him this epic Veil of Voltage. All allies gain 25% damage reduction, plus 1 energy anytime they deal damage to a shocked enemy. It does buff some honor-bound heroes, which we're not really using that much right now anyways, but all enemies are silenced in the first round, so everybody has to make sure that they have that in mind anytime going against Jin. He is immune to lightning, shock, silence, paralysis. Whenever another ally shocks or paralyzes an enemy, or it's with a lightning attack, this hero will make a follow-up basic attack. So remember, Dhaegon is really, really hot and in right now, and he follows up Dhaegon with his own lightning attacks, which are extremely powerful. Aside from that, whenever a lightning effect, paralyze, or shock is applied to an enemy, or whenever an allied hero hits with an enemy attack, or with a lightning attack, this hero will gain a stack of storm power, which then makes his other moves stronger, and he is honor bound, so he takes less damage from AoE, and buffs applied to this hero last an additional round than they would have. Storm of the Ancestors is extremely powerful. For each stack of storm power, it's going to do 10% more damage, so it does a lot of damage. Buffs all allies, so it makes them do more damage if they're buffed after from this buff after he uses it. and it does more damage to paralyzed and shocked targets. Calm Before reapplies that silence, and Chain Lightning does a ton of damage by itself. Typically, you end up not even really needing to use Chain Lightning, but because Storm of the Ancestors pretty much takes care of it. But Storm of the Ancestors, in case I didn't already mention it, is also shield piercing, so it's extremely effective against. It pretty much makes it so that a ton of other heroes aren't even usable because of how often Jin is used. He pretty much locks out, I would say, more than 50 or 60% of the entire rest of the dungeon boss roster just by his normal effects. So very, very solid hero. Not overpowered. He's just like right in my opinion, right in the perfect spot as far as his power level of being a really strong legendary. In at number 5 for me is going to be Alrakis, Skullkeeper, the Bone Daddy himself. Alrakis is really, really strong, and in my last top 10 video, I had him a lot higher, and actually higher than 2 of the heroes that are above him this video. And there is reason for that. Part of the reason is, although he is really, really strong, his moves are super, super overpowered. His traits are extremely good. Basically, every single thing about this hero is very good. That said, he's not really that great on defense, and to bring him on offense, he works really well with some heroes and does not really work really amazingly against all defenses. And I know a lot of people out there are going to say, well, no hero works really great against, all defenses, which I guess is somewhat true, but just from the amount of raids, and if you look at pretty much, if you go to the Boss 100 and you look at the replays from all the top players in the top 100, you'll notice not a lot of them are using Alrakis. It's not that none of them are using him, and definitely a lot of them are trying him out because of the new hero that came out, Nivius. But you still don't really see him used that often, and the reason is just a lot of other heroes are just fitting that spot a little bit better, and a lot of other heroes have a little bit better survivability for the Dhaegon Serenity meta that's currently kind of like the in thing right now. That said, all of his traits are good. If you're curious about him, go check him out. He is definitely absolutely 1000% worth starring up. If you haven't really started working on him, definitely do. But I will say that his usage, and I think his OP-ness, I don't really know, OP-ness. His overwhelming strength, how do I even say that, has been a little bit diminished since that last video, but definitely extremely strong. I would say if you don't have him, but you have some of the other heroes and you want a similar effect, just get some Chaos Runes and slap those bad boys on some of your better heroes. But definitely, like I said, definitely still really good. All of his moveset is really, really good. I don't really want to go super into detail. I went pretty into detail the first time I did this in the last video, and I think a lot of the stuff still applies. He totally mitigates a lot of other people's immunities. He applies a ton of damage at the end of the round, even if he's dead. With Nivius now, he kind of has the ability to potentially come back to life. So definitely still a good hero, and definitely, the top 5 is nothing to scoff at. But I do think the 4 above him are a little bit better. Coming in at number 4 for me is going to be Emperor Soulcard. You can see here I have the Krampus skin, so it says Krampus Soulcard. But anyway, so this is Soulcard has just remained a really, really strong hero. He definitely, I feel, almost gets better with each new hero that comes out. When Serenity came out, it made him immediately better with this single target Incite Doom attack, which made it so that he could do this attack and do a pit, which increased his effectiveness by a lot. Before, he wasn't quite as insane, so to speak, just because you pretty much had to use Into the Pit, which is really, really good. It removes one hero off the battlefield immediately, but you also kind of gave up being able to deal damage, and if you couldn't Into the Pit the person you wanted to, or if somebody was running Grande or something, there's a few things that could stop you from doing this. Well, the ability to be able to use Incite Doom and do a ton of damage and then be able to Into the Pit makes him really, really, really devastatingly powerful. And aside from that, his stats are still the same as, or his traits, are still the same as before. His traits that remove things like, that remove debuffs on himself. If another demon or fire hero is killed, this hero's health is set to 100. All abilities become powered. If at least one other ally is a demon, this hero becomes fast, and demons start with +1 energy. So we're talking about Malice, who in her own right is a really strong hero, and just all the other good stuff that makes him good that I've already talked about before. Just being able to ignore, taunt, provoke, and aversion. The good thing about Soulcard is that he survives a lot of metas, and I can see him continue to be good regardless of new heroes that end up coming out. So definitely work on Soulcard. I'm not going to go through each one of his things just because I already did in the last video, which you can still go check out, and I will link it at the end of this video as well. The number 3 hero for me is going to be Archon. Archon, again, is another one of those heroes that was already really good and got even better because of Serenity. Serenity made him just ridiculously powerful. His Burning Berserk ability is an AoE attack that does tons and tons of damage, applies a 3-turn debuff, but only counts as a single target attack. So using this will allow him to then use his explodey self-destruct move that does insane amounts of damage, reduces corpses, can't be dodged, purges all buffs. This is just a complete game ender when it goes off. So you need to try and stop him from doing it. The problem is he's immune to damage because of him being a spirit and all of these other really good buffs that he has here. So again, he's one that he buffs warriors, so he's going to buff somebody like Soulcard. He's going to get fire buff because of Soulcard as well. He has the ability to impair opponents. So pretty much everything about Archon is extremely strong, and just his ability to, on his own, pretty much wipe out an entire enemy team is why I put him so high on this list. Archon is for me personally, is one of my most hated heroes to go up against on a defense. A really strong Archon, if you don't take care of him, will completely ruin your plans, and he's just an extremely devastating hero. So I definitely recommend all of you get this guy going any chance you get. Number 2 on this list for me is going to be Stormforged Dagon, but specifically Stormforged Dagon, which is the Dagon that has this skin, which the skin gives him a buff, but also with his epic. So I do not currently have his epic. Very sadly, I really wish I did have his epic, but hopefully soon I will have it. But he's just absolutely devastating with the epic plus the skin. He's just over the top strong. His epic attack is extremely powerful. If you really want to take a look at it, go to my epic Dagon video that I released a couple weeks ago, maybe a week or 2 ago, and I go over why it's so incredibly strong. But just aside from that, all of his moves, all of his traits are really strong. The rework really did wonders for him, and right now you're going to see him on almost every top tier defense. Pretty much everybody's running him, but you're also going to see him on almost every top tier offense, and that's why to me he definitely easily takes this number 2 spot over some of the other heroes, just because he's crazy good. He's really good in PvE, really good in PvP, and I don't even have his epic, and I'm still using him in almost every single attack in PvP that I do. So I mean, I think without a doubt he's definitely one of the best heroes right now. Thunder Smash silences and paralyzes. Electrified Whirlwind reduces their energy by 1. Resounding Pounding works really well with Serenity. Everything about his moveset works with Serenity. So again, super strong. If you want a more detailed reason as to why he's so strong, just go check out my video that I did on him recently. Last but not least, and I'm sure you all knew this was coming, Serenity easily, in my opinion, takes the number 1 spot. Some people might argue with me that Epic Dagon is now in that number 1 spot, but for me, I don't think any of the heroes that were on this list would be as good as they are without Serenity. Serenity makes any other hero extremely good. She's this meta's Rayla, essentially. Rayla, her main thing was that she made so many other heroes really good, and Serenity does the exact same thing. And I would argue that Serenity probably makes better heroes good, making her a lot stronger. That said, I do not think that Serenity is quite as overpowered, so to speak, as Rayla was. And it's hard because yes, she's insanely good, and I think probably a better overall hero than Rayla was, but Rayla was just really annoying to deal with on defense. Rayla had the ability to have 4 people on a team all attack you with their special moves before you had even a chance to do anything at all, which was really like a ridiculous mechanic. Now, I do think that they over nerfed her. I don't think she needed to be as nerfed as she was, because as you can see, she's not even in the top 10 anymore. But I think Serenity is really good without breaking the game. Serenity is pretty squishy. You can deal with her. She doesn't have like a ton of damage reduction. She does have some because of her having martial artist and working with other. I mean, it's probably a lot of people are going to argue with me about her not being overpowered, and to some degree she probably is a little bit overpowered, but there's still a lot of ways to play the game without her, and there's a lot of defenses right now that aren't even using her. That said, she is crazy good, and she's number 1 on this list for a reason. Her null magic is one of the best things in this game, and the ability to give her all of her teammates haste after using a single target melee attack is insanely overpowered. And part of the problem with this move is that it's too many special moves apply here, as far as like there's so many AoE moves that are counting as single target moves, which probably shouldn't. The Archon special move probably shouldn't count. Dagon special probably shouldn't count. So there's so many moves on here that other heroes use that make it so that like that's what makes it OP. I think if the developers remove the ability for a lot of those AoE moves to be affected by this Adept Strikes, I think that would make her a lot more balanced while still keeping her extremely good. Her abilities are really good. Dispelling Strike, being able to silence Lily through Oak form, same with Agnon, which you don't really see him as much, but still. And her other moves are just really solid as well. I might do a team video soon all around Serenity, but realistically she's like really good, and I want to tell people to go out there and go get her and, you know, spend your summons and stuff to get her, but I'm like, I don't want to say that and then have them nerf her like they did with Rayla. But I don't know, I do think she's extremely good, and any team can benefit from having her, and I don't think anybody will disagree that she's either the number 1 or the number 2 hero, and I think most people would say that she's definitely the number 1 hero. So now that we've gone over my list, I want to take a look at the list that we did in live stream and kind of compare the 2 lists, just so that you guys can see it side by side. So up on the screen, what you're gonna see is the list that was made by the live stream. So on stream, everybody voted, and this was the list that they came up with. So as you can see, it's pretty similar to what I went over here in this video. It was pretty close. Some of the differences would be obviously Dhaegon taking the number 2 spot instead of Soulcard, and then the fact that I had Archon above Soulcard as well. My Jin actually ended up being in the same spot. Alrakis was 1 spot lower for me. You know, the stream decided that Miko was better than Sybil, but in my opinion, again, I already explained, but I think Sybil is a better hero overall than Miko. And they also didn't include Grande in the top 10, which was surprising to me. I think Grande is a very vital hero right now, and while Malice is very vital as far as being able to use Soulcard, I wouldn't individually rate her as strong or as vital as somebody like Grande or something to that effect. So I can understand the argument either way, and you know, I would probably agree. For me, my number 11 was going to be Malice, tied more or less with Lily. I think Malice is better than Lily, but you still see Lily a lot on defense, so you gotta assume that she's still pretty powerful. But for me, Lily would be like around a 12 and Malice would be an 11. But again, any of the heroes on this list are going to be super strong. Definitely go check out the live version of this. It was a lot of fun, and I hope that you guys join in on the next one. I'm also going to link the Dhaegon video so you guys can go take a look at that. But anyways, that concludes this top 10 list. I will see you guys soon.